Inravio.com.
Hello everybody, welcome to the 505 on Racing Show, live from the studios in New York. Happy holidays to everybody. I have my little Santa Claus hat going on. This will be our last show for 2018, as we will be no show on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, so that you folks and our folks could spend times with our family, much deserved time with our family. So it's all well. Tonight's show is going to be a good one. They're all good ones, I guess. I'm going to talk about the Touring Series banquet and some of the ongoings there, some NASCAR news. We have some news from the New York INEX legends that we're going to talk about. Some things going on in NASCAR as always. And then, of course, unfortunately, we'll have some sad news to bring to the folks, and I'm sure many of you are aware, but we have a little thing for that as well. But getting right into it, the NASCAR touring banquet was held recently to honor all the touring series teams and champions. And 6 champions were crowned for the series out there. I think we have some pictures there. And we have the 6 series that NASCAR has in touring on the touring series level. We have the NASCAR Wheel Enduro Series. We have the NASCAR Pinty Series. We have the Peak Energy Series, the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour Series, the K&N Pro Series West, and as well as the K&N Pro Series East. The Wheel and Modified Tour champion was Justin Bonsignore, and we're going to go left to right there of the modified series. Next in the line is Ruben Garcia from the Peak Energy Series, champion there. NASCAR Wheel Enduro Series, Alain Day. And the NASCAR Pinty Series up in Canada is LP Dumoulin. And the K&N Pro Series West champion was Derek Thorne, and the K&N Pro Series East winner was Tyler Ankrum. Now, there's no secret that we're out of New York, and Justin Bonsignore is a New York born and bred racer who cut his teeth in the go-karts here on Long Island in the Eastern Kart Racing Association. And he also drove modifieds and charger cars at the famed Riverhead Raceway on Long Island. Here's a picture of Justin Bonsignore with his brother Matt, his mom, and his dad, Tom Bonsignore. Tom Bonsignore, very instrumental in his son's early development in racing. And that's got to be a proud moment for any family in any form of racing, to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame and have your picture taken with what's equivalent to the Stanley Cup in hockey, where every champion, every modified champion's name is on that trophy, on the base of that trophy, with the Crystal Cup on top. And I got to tell you, it's a very heavy trophy. I had the opportunity to carry it off of Victory Lane at the Thompson Motorsports Park on multiple occasions. And it's quite heavy, and it's one of those, an honor to have to add to your trophy room. Justin Bonsignore, he's one of those guys, and along with his team owner, Ken Massa, and their sponsor, Peak Communications, Inc. It's a picture of the group there as well. Beautifully prepared equipment, as well as a team that was put together with all the right people. And when I say all the right people, it's a group that took a while to put together. But when you get the right people together, there's no telling what could happen. And that's what happened here. They got the right crew chiefs. And when you have a car owner who spares no expense to make it happen. And that's a group shot of the crew. All the guys with Justin, of course, out front, all dressed up. And, you know, they say dressed up and nowhere to go. They had somewhere to go. They went to the championship banquet. And that's a big thing. That's a big honor. I attended many of those banquets over the years. I enjoyed them better, believe it or not, when they were here on Long Island, in Connecticut, at the Mohegan Sun Casino and Hotel. And there were a lot of people there. The Northeast is modified country. However, NASCAR, in its infinite wisdom, and for reasons of cost, I'm sure, just decided instead of having 6 different banquets across 2 continents, to have one. And logistically, I'm sure it's a nightmare. However, it's a packed house, and everybody that's there has a great time, and it's all good. So again, congratulations to Justin Bonsignor, as well as Ken Masser and his entire team, and Ken Masser's wife, Janine, who is also very instrumental in that team. It was a great time that they had, and I'll tell you what. I can remember when Justin first came on the tour, and I know I've talked about this a few times. When he first came on the tour, you know, he was good right from the get-go. Yeah, there were some incidences and some situations, and it didn't always work out as planned, but you know, they did it. They worked at it. They learned. And they didn't come in like gangbusters. They didn't come in like know-it-alls. They came in and they learned. And Ken put the best team possible together, Ken Masser. And he wasn't afraid to tell people, you know what, you're not working out here. And replace them. And I don't know how many crew chiefs they went through until they found the right one. And a crew chief and driver relationship is big. The crew chief and the driver, it's almost like a husband-wife deal. They have to communicate. They have to communicate. They have to feel comfortable with each other, and they did. And it's just good. And I don't want to say it's funny to see, but it's great to see a Long Islander. You know, again, we're housed out of Long Island, and if my favoritism towards a Long Island driver is showing, okay. But I remember Justin when he was just a little kid, and I knew he was going to move up and move on, and then, you know, we just hope that this continues for him. And who knows, you know, the top 3 series, they're always looking for people. Sometimes they're looking for people that can come with a big fat check, and sometimes they're looking for people with talent. And I'm thinking Justin's going to have both of them when that time comes. So it's all good. Anyway, again, congratulations to the 51 team, making Long Island proud. On a sadder note, Phil Kurse, Vice President, Motorsports Marketing for Whelen Engineering, passed away recently at the age of 69. Phil Kurse was instrumental in Whelen's involvement with many partnerships with NASCAR. There he is with Bobby Allison. And not only with NASCAR's touring series, but also the weekly series and many touring series, including Europe. And he was a fixture at modified tour events, would often refer to a summer day as wheeling weather. I'd walk up to Phil and I'd say, hey, Phil, how you doing today? He goes, Joe, we got wheeling weather. It meant it was sunny and we were racing. And even when it was cloudy, we had wheeling weather because the race went. And there's Phil Kurse with the late Jimmy Hunter, who was a instrumental member of the NASCAR team in the top ranks. And that is the day at New Hampshire when they announced that Whelen was going to be a title sponsor, taking over for the Federlite group of people of Federlite when it was the Federlite Modified Tour. Nobody could be more prouder than Phil Kurse, who not only was a race fan, he traveled to all the races, but he also helped teams and played with it. And there's Phil with Mike Helton when he showed the trophy that showed every modified champion, not just from the touring days, but every modified champion that goes back many, many years. Again, like I refer to it as the Stanley Cup. But He, he was also involved and deeply involved in the Bodine Olympic bobsled project as president that Jeff Bodine put together. And they used, and there's a picture of Phil sitting in the sled, the Bodine sled, and went up to Lake Placid, a contingent of people, to test it out. It did very well. And Phil was so proud of that moment that, you know, not just race cars, you know, he helped and was involved with the Bodine sled as well. And, you know, he was an ambassador to our sport. He fought for what he believed in. He was very instrumental in getting the modified races on TV, where most TV networks didn't want to be bothered, and even some of the NASCAR stations, not that they didn't want to be bothered, they just felt that, you know, who's going to want to watch a modified race, I guess. But Phil, I remember the meeting goes, I'm fighting with them to get you TV coverage. And it's not as many as it could be, but it's more than it was. And I had the opportunity to talk with Phil Kurse on many, many, many occasions, sometimes in the NASCAR hauler. There he is with the owner of Thompson Speedway, former owner, I guess, of Don Honig and the late Ted Christopher. And that looks like at the World Series at Thompson with those plaques. But, you know, many conversations. And Phil was such that his passion for racing, I thought I had a passion for racing, you know, going to 2-3 races a week from February to October, even into November. But his passion was racing and to do what's right for the team. And he asked NASCAR the hard questions, and he backed it up with not only, you know, seeking out the answers, but when he came along and he kept upping his sponsorship of the Modified Tour and giving every NASCAR Whelen All-American Series racetrack in North America Whelen Engineering lighting for their caution lights and around the racetracks, and all of the other NASCAR racetracks as well. And I got to share a story. My mom just passed away, and Phil, of course, offered his condolences. And I said to him, I said, you know what the best part of this is? I mean, it's never good that somebody passed away in your family, but the fire department came to my house and stocked my bar continuously because people were in and out of my house and kept the food coming. I gave them the keys to my house, and they cooked the food, and they fed people and served people, and it cost me nothing. And Phil says, I didn't know you were a fireman. I said, yeah, I'm a volunteer in Babylon Village. And the next event, he brought me lights, the blue lights for my car. And I said, what do I owe you? And he goes, oh, you're testing them. And I couldn't thank him enough. That's the type of guy Phil was. So we got a little video montage, and it's a tribute to Phil. And I want to thank the Racing with Jesus Ministries for not only for making this video, but for giving us the opportunity to use it tonight on our show. And take a look at this, and if you didn't know Phil Kurse, you're going to know what kind of man he was after you watch this. Here we go.
Hey, what's... Oh, I was going to say what's up for some reason. Hey, we're Set It Up, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi there, this is Buddy from Less Than Jake, and you are listening to Inravio TV. You're probably watching it too.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Also, down in Charlotte for the Champions Banquet, NASCAR also crowned the NASCAR Wheeling All-American Series Division I National Champion, Philip Morris. Philip, this is his 5th national title. So he's no stranger to the spotlight when it comes to racing. Philip runs a late model. And you know, when you go to these things, and like I said, I've been to so many of these banquets over the years, you know, and I have to tell you this, and I've gone to, I don't know how many weekly racing series banquets, but I've been to, I can't even tell you how many touring banquets, and also on some of the higher levels as well. And NASCAR, this I gotta take my hat off. I would take this hat off too, but it'll mess my hair. Take my hat off to them because what they do and what they've done, and when you look at what's going on now, it's a TV atmosphere. There's the cameras, the lights, the glitz, the music. You know, it's a $1 million stage, you know, presentation-wise. When they're doing the speeches, you could hear somebody put their cup down on the nice fancy tablecloth. Respect. And sometimes that's missing at the weekly banquets because, and this is my opinion, because what happens is at the touring banquet series and at the high levels, you're given 2 free drink tickets. 2. It's not an open bar where you just stand there and drink and you don't go to your table and drink and you become loud and obnoxious. So for those racetracks and people who haven't been to their banquets yet, I ask you to show respect for the speakers, the presenters, for the champions who work so hard, and for the sponsors, and as they will be recognized. And there's nothing worse than being at table 27 in the back and you can't hear what's going on. And I'll tell you what, Nascar has that under control in the touring series, in the top levels. And it's just, keep that in mind, folks. I've already beat the horse to death on what to wear at these things, but show some respect for the teams and let them enjoy their moment. Who knows? They might not get 5 of these national titles like Philip Morris, and that might be their first and only title. But let them enjoy that, and that's just again coming from me. And that video for Phil Kurse, and I'll tell you what, the Race with Jesus Ministries put that together, and when I saw it this morning on social media, I immediately messaged Pastor Don Rivers and asked for permission to use it. And he went to the powers to be who could make that decision. And again, I want to thank them. The Racing with Jesus Ministries is at just about every racetrack. And they're there for a multitude of reasons. They're there to pray over us as drivers, competitors, crew members, team owners, fans, anybody that's at that place, our families, and they're also there if you need to talk to them. And believe me, over the years, the ministries and I had many chats, some that they called me in for and some I called them for. And they put this together very, very quickly. And when they do stuff like this, it's incredible with the pictures that they have and on and on and on. I can't thank them enough. And again, for giving us permission to use that video today. And I think they did a nice job on it. And so my hat's off to them. So anyway, this is a kind of time of year, kind of season. We're all entrenched in the holiday. Hanukkah passed, now we're into the Christian time of year with Christmas, which is going to be next Tuesday. And if you're shopping for that last-minute gift for your racer, go to the guy that sells the parts at your racetrack. Look them up, call them up. I'm sure there's a bill that's sitting there. Get him a gift card, get a gift certificate. This way the guy will have some money himself, because sometimes the parts guy is the forgotten guy at the racetrack, the forgotten guy, and we can't have that anyway. Yeah, some news out of the New York ranks, and of course some Long Island guys, and I'm proud of my Long Island guys, and I'm not afraid to say that. So the INEX US Legend cars, which compete all over the country, have different levels of competition. And we have 2 Long Island guys. Long Island's Vinny Delaney was named the New York State Pro Champion in the INEX Legends. He races at Bethel, Riverhead, Seekonk, wherever there's a legend car race in the Northeast Wall. You could find Vinny there racing it. There's his number 17. Very successful in his legend cars. And Vinny not only is a driver and a New York State champion, he's also, he does shocks, I believe, and sells them at the racetrack, and tires and all kinds of good stuff. A very helpful guy. He reminds me of the old-time figure 8 guys when I was racing, that was always there to help people. And James Sylvester, who I've known for many, many years, was named the New York State Masters champion. Both the home tracks for Vinny and James is at the Riverhead Raceway here on Long Island. And speaking of the Riverhead Raceway, an announcement was made, and I'm going to say, hopefully it was a premature announcement, that the Long Island Vintage Auto Racing Series, also known as LIVARS, which has about 15 race cars, and has competed at the racetrack for a number of years now, was told that they would not be on the schedule after they already were. Now, I don't know the reasons or who made the reason, who decided this, but it was announced, and it kind of put these drivers in a very compromised position, because some guys had gone out, some competitors had gone out and purchased these modified cars. And anybody that's been involved with modified racing, you just don't buy it for a couple $100 on the corner. These things probably go between $20,000 and $30,000 because they're the real modifieds. They're vintage, and they're from the old days, some of them, but some of them are just that way on the exterior. They have a lot of the modern equipment underneath, the motors and the suspension. And some guys went out and bought new motors, and some guys went out and had their motors freshened up, and that's no cheap thing. Now they get they get a phone call that they're not on the schedule. And I think a lot happened between people emailing, people phone calling, people talking about it in social media and whatnot, that the owners of the racetrack are going to meet with James Kelly, who's president of LiveBars, and has been a guest on our show on a couple of occasions, and Don Howe, former NASCAR champion and tour driver as well. They're going to sit and meet with the owners, as I said, at the racetrack. And as Jim Kelly had said in social media, he said that they bring, on average, 15 cars. Now that's, 15 cars and a driver and 4 crew members, that's 5. So you're talking, 65 people paying a pit fee of, we'll say $30. It's really $35, but for round numbers. You're talking almost $2,000 gets brought into the racetrack every time they race. They don't race for a purse, and they supply their own trophies. They tech their own cars. They park way in the back and don't bother anybody. So as a businessman, I'd wonder, why would you not want to have that revenue coming into your racetrack when the fans love watching a race? They love watching the old Maynard Troyer car, and the old Richie Evans looking car, and the old Don Howe looking car, and all the cars from back in the day. So I'm hoping that was just a premature announcement on a misunderstanding, and that it could be fixed, because I personally enjoy watching the vintage cars race. I've watched the vintage cars race at Lime Rock. I've watched them at Seekonk. I've watched them at Wall. I've been watching them at the New London Waterford Speedbowl, and it's just awesome to watch these guys go out and go racing. So I hope they could fix that, because these guys, they're not going to want to travel on a regular basis. They race once a month here. If you haven't emailed your local racetrack for them, and you like the vintage cars, do so, but do so in a positive way. Just say how much you love those vintage cars and why you want to see them continue on. Like I said, it costs the track nothing. They buy NASCAR licenses. They pay the same pit fee as everybody else. So I don't understand, and you can't squeeze them in, once every 4 weeks. I don't know. I'm hoping that they could fix this. I'm hoping when we come back in January for our next show, because we're going to be off, as I said, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. I hope that they come back and make that happen. So again, reach out to our racetrack here on Long Island. Reach out to them, and again, in a positive way. Let them know that you care, because I've noticed with the new ownership, if you present something to them in a professional, polite manner, they listen. I personally was involved with a situation like that where it could have went ugly real fast, but I wrote an email. The email was read. I got a phone call, and everything was okay. Everything was okay. Anyway, so again, congratulations to Vinny Delaney on his pro championship in New York State and James Sylvester on his Masters champion in New York State, INEX US Legend Cars. A little NASCAR news coming out. Rumor has it, I saw this one coming. Rumor has it that Rick Hendrick is gonna turn Hendrick Motorsports over to Jeff Gordon eventually. In an interview with Auto Week, Rick Hendrick said that. Hendrick told Auto Week magazine recently he will remain temporarily as the primary owner, but eventually the team will be fully owned by Jeff Gordon. Saw that coming. Rick Hendrick knows that Jeff Gordon was an instrumental part of the success of Hendrick Motorsports. And why not give back? And that's the type of man Rick Hendrick is. He gives back. What else we got? NASCAR truck champion Brett Moffitt also told Auto Week that he will not return to Hattori Racing for the 2019 season. Moffitt's replacement, according to Auto Week, will be a driver who is going to bring funding. Imagine that. How do you part ways with a driver who just won the championship in the Camping World Truck Series for you? The money that that driver made for you over the season, plus the championship, you kick him to the curb because you want this other driver to come in because he has a big bank account or his daddy has a big bank account. Is that what we've come to in racing? This isn't the first time something like this has happened. It's not the first time. Years ago, and I say this all the time, when I was young, those two old guys sitting in front of me, they were talking, remember back in our day? I said to the guy with me, I hope that's not me. Hope that's not us. Well, I'd become those two old guys that used to sit in front of me with their flannel shirts, their old flannel hats, and their work boots, and smoking cigars and drinking beers. All right. I became those guys. I just dressed different. So, years ago, if you were good, you got the shot, then you got the sponsor. Then you went and chased the money. Not now. There's so many good drivers that are sitting home. They're sitting home, and it's just not right. You know, it's just not right, in my opinion. And let's see, Starcom Racing announced that Landon Castle will return as the driver of the Car 00 in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. Starcom purchased the charter from Richard Childress Racing, which it was leasing in 2018. Now, we all know my feelings on this charter stuff. And if you're a charter team, you're automatically in the race. And why don't you just start everybody that shows up? Oh, I know you can't do that because you don't have full fields. So get rid of this charter, because let me tell you something. There's 36 charter teams, 40 start the race. They average 39, and when you read through the math, how many cars showed up every week? And what happened is that here I am. I'm a newbie. I'm not a newbie, but I also don't have a Monster Energy NASCAR Cup team. But if I did, there'd be a lot of people chasing me for money. But if I did, why would I go to Daytona, to Talladega, to Martinsville, to Bristol, to all the other tracks, Texas, Kansas? Why would I go? Because I'm fighting for 2 spots. And if 41 cars show up, I'm probably not making it. And I just spent a couple of $100,000 to go. And I'm not making it. That's why there aren't full fields. Straight up qualifying. If you're quick enough, you're in. You're not quick enough, go home. Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me. And for those who don't know what the provisionals, how the provisionals came to be, I'm going to tell you how the provisionals came to be. It was a Daytona 500, and I don't remember the year. but it was, I'm going to say, early 70s maybe. Richard Petty was on his decline, and he didn't make the Daytona 500. He didn't make it. And he went into Bill France, and he said, Bill France, well, Mr. France, because he's a gentleman, he's a Southern gentleman. He said, Mr. France, this would be the first Daytona 500 without a Petty in it. We got to do something about this. Bill France looked at him and says, well, yeah, Richard Petty's been good to NASCAR. Richard Petty brought corporate sponsorship to NASCAR. Richard Petty is a spokesperson for NASCAR. He's the world ambassador for NASCAR. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make a provision. Past champion, there's 5 provisions. Past champion, top 2 in owner points that didn't make it, top 2 in driver points that didn't make it. So Richard Petty was, at that time, a 6-time champion, I believe. So he's guaranteed a spot in every Daytona 500. Now, you would say that there were other past champions that were still competing. However, they made the race. And maybe Richard Petty hung on a little bit too long, because those who remember him in 90, 91, 92, watching him race, didn't see the battles that he had with the late, great David Pearson, with the Allison brothers, Cale Yarborough, you know, beating and banging. Back in the days of Weatherly and those guys, it was a whole different, I don't know, how can I say, a whole different way of racing. And these guys ate, slept, and drank racing. They left their homes, wherever it was, in Richard Petty's case, level cross. They loaded up the truck, and boom, a race, a race, a race. They didn't go back and forth like they did now and then, except for the races that were close to home. You know, like in the Carolina, the race was only an hour or 2 away. But once they'd go up to New York, and then they raced at Bridgehampton. They raced at Islip Speedway, and go over to Thompson, Jersey, across the northern part of the United States, Michigan, back out to California. They didn't go back and forth. They hoped to make enough money at this week's race to be able to race next week. And that's what those guys did. And the guys who drove the cars worked on them, and sometimes drove the haulers. So, you know, when you look at this provisional thing, I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's, with the charter system, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough. Anyway, I know, not that I've been ignoring, but all my friends in Facebook Live, thank you. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just, it's tough to, I got accused of texting while we were live. I wasn't texting, I was answering somebody. But so thank you. And Mike Vride is doing some collections for people with his race team. So if you can get in touch with him and maybe drop off a toy or something, it'll be all good. V-Ride is a guy who's been on our show, and he was a perfect guest. All our guests are good. All our guests are good. So I want to thank. And Jim Kelly, I hope you heard my chat about live hours, and if you want to put your little 2 cents in on that thing, I'm sure our viewers would greatly appreciate that. Would greatly appreciate it. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and we come back, we'll have some more race talk, and kind of fill you guys and teach you guys and share some of our stories when we come back.
Hi, I'm Remington.
I'm Emerson.
And I'm Sebastian.
We're Palais Royale, and you're watching Inravio TV.
There we go.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, this is Chris Les Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi, this is Mike Jarecki from My Race News, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Welcome back, everybody. Little blip there. We're not having an early Christmas party. Trust me. We're just we're having a good time. Good time. I can't believe it's 2018, the last show for us in 2018. And we'll be coming back strong in 2019 with, I don't want to say a new format, but we're going to try something a little bit different. We'll be back January 7th, our first show of 2019. So hopefully people will like what we're going to be doing. We have some things going on. We have some good stuff planned. Trust me. Trust me. It's going on for a long time, going on 8 years. 8 years. Who would have thought? I thought I was just doing this for a couple months. Every time I tried to get out, they sucked me back in. But anyway, we're having fun with this. And you know, this is the time of year racing is how do I put this? You know, the weekly guys should be getting ready, and the big teams are starting to get ready once the holidays are over. And I know what got me pumped to go, I got to start working on my race car. Wait, let me rephrase that. I got to start calling the guys who were going to work on my race car. It was usually after the Daytona 500. And you watch that race, and you're sitting back, and you're having drinks with your friends, and you're telling stories, and all of a sudden you realize, whoa, it's February. We're going to be racing in a couple of months. And when you do that, it's wow. And you go to your shop, you go to your garage, wherever it is, and you start working on your race cars. And I kid you not, I wasn't a big fan of working on my race cars, and that maybe the results showed, but I had a lot of guys over the years that were very helpful to me. And one of our guys is a guy that's always on the show, except for tonight, Jake Slice, was a very big help over the last couple of years, and the last few years, I should say. But you know, any racer, you know, when racing's a type of thing, and for those who don't know it, because there's some people who I see in Facebook Live that really never raced. You know, they're fans. You know, they go and they root for their neighbor, their friend, their coworker. And then there's what I call the fence grabbers who just stand there on the fence. You know, they're just watching, don't have a clue. And then when the racer, they look at a car and they'll look at this part and they're like, they have no idea what it's used for. I was the same way, but it was, you know, no idea. Wow. And I always often wondered, what are they looking at when they're staring at the right front tire of a modified or a late model or any kind of car. So, and yeah, when you know, Jay Slice, Tink, and 22 figure 8 did let me know he got it. I got an absent note from him. He's working. I'm not sure where Jay Slice is, but you know, there's a passion here. There's a passion in this sport, and the late Phil Kurse, who just recently passed away, he put his money where his mouth is. He went to Wheeling Engineer and he said, hey, I'm into this racing thing. I see a market here. And they started sponsoring cars, and they, at every level, Cup, truck, the old Nationwides here, the modified, K&N, and the lights that they put in these racetracks, and the presence that they made, the presence that Phil Kurse made, the smile on his face. And I can remember sitting in a meeting with Phil Kurse, and all of a sudden this smiley guy was all business. And he couldn't understand why the races weren't on TV. And he said, I got to get these guys on TV. We're up in New Hampshire. and we're sitting in the office, the hauler, and he goes, who do I have to talk to? And then there was Jimmy Hunter, the late Jimmy Hunter, one of the most friendliest, knowledgeable gentlemen that worked for NASCAR that I had many opportunities to sit and talk with. And they talked. And like anything else, a lot had to do with sponsorship. And Phil Kerr's argument was always, you own the station, back when it was Speed Channel. Do I need to see 5 hours of a car auction? All right, so make it 4 and show a modified race. That's what he did. He fought for these guys in a professional business way that only Phil Kurse could do. And when you look at that, when you look at that and the passion and the time he gave up from his family, and he passed from cancer, and when he had the tumor removed from his brain, you know, he would go on social media, oh, still positive, all good. I would message back and forth with him, and I got to tell you something, and I don't really know what to do about it, but he knows I'm a writer, and he knows that I have books, and he called me in somewhere, and I wasn't even part of NASCAR, and I was with a team, and he saw me at the racetrack, and he grabbed me and goes, Joe, come here. He goes to me, why don't you write a book? I'm writing books all the time. He goes, no, I want you to write a book about the stories of the modified tour. The stories that Ed Cox, who was the series director for the tour for a long time, the stories from Jerry Cook, Ed Flemke Jr., Jamie Tamano, Jeff and Rick Fuller, Wayne Anderson, Jimmy Blewett. Those guys. The Mystic Missile people. Those guys. Get with them. The bowlers. He goes, because when they're gone, the stories are gone. So the first time he asked me, I said, Phil, it's not my style. I don't do that. I write fictional stories that make people think, like, because behind every bit of fiction is a little bit of truth, maybe that much truth. And we talked about it, and I talked to some drivers, and they were all for it, and they were prepared to share some stuff. And anybody that was involved with modified racing over the years seemed to be into it. And it was just, it was gonna, not that it was gonna be hard work. I'm not afraid of hard work, and I try to work smart. I don't fear that. But it was gonna be a lot of legalese, getting releases, pictures, getting releases for pictures, getting releases for people. I needed a lawyer, and the cost to do this just was more than I had to pay. And Phil and I talked about that. We talked about it. And we talked about why we need to do this. And when I got the word that he passed, when I got that word, I was like, we lost all his stories. His stories are gone. And that's one of the things he was trying to point out. And for those of you who saw that movie way back when, Days of Thunder, where it said technical advice, NASCAR, the technical advisor for that show, other than the drivers who were in it, like Greg Sachs and Rusty Wallace, but the real guy who sat with the writers was Ed Cox. And a lot of those stories, Ed Cox supplied them with. Like when they were at the restaurant and Cole Trickle and Rowdy were talking, and he made them rent a car, and they were there at that meeting, and they went to the restaurant, and they raced down the beach. That really happened. That was, in real life, that was Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Jeff Bodine. because they were wrecking each other week after week. And there was a few other of the stories that were there. Now, yeah, 200 miles an hour, you're not beating and banging and putting people in a wall and all that kind of nonsense. But a lot of the help for the stories came from Ed Cox. And Phil Kurse said, you got to get with them. You got to get with Ed Cox. Jamie Tomino, you got to get with him. He never missed a race. He's there from the get-go. Jerry Cook, you got to get those. And I'm sitting there when I was reading all the kind words that people said about Phil Kurse, and then I saw that video this morning from the Racing with Jesus Ministries. I said, you know, Phil Kurse, you might be right. I may need to do that. I don't know how this, I mean, I shouldn't say I don't know how. I've started. I've spoken to some drivers. I have some stuff written down. I have an outline, you know, how you start to write. I have all of that. And I'm like, where do I go from here? Now I got to start getting pictures and releases. And I don't know if it's something my publisher's going to publish, because that's not my style. And he wants me to do this other book, and you know, because I won't get into that. But the story, we all have stories. I see some of the stories here in the chat rooms and in social media. I see some of the stories on racing, and a lot of people, you know, it's like, and like Tink just said, WJ, the guy's been involved with racing forever, you know, late WJ, and him and I spoke sometimes about some of the stuff in the old days. And like I said, WJ was a guy, if you were to say to me, and I have a good memory, and those close to me know I do, know that I could pinpoint just about anything, and I don't remember the first time WJ walked up to me, I walked up and said, or even somebody introduced us and went, hey, how you doing? I'm Joe. Hey, I'm WJ. I don't remember that. It just seems like he was always there. You know, Marty Himes, he's another one. We have plans, and we could let the candidates, one of the things for next year, to go to Marty's house and just get some of those stories out of him. And in fact, I believe we have a brief little thing that we did at Marty's with former modified driver Lenny Fisher. I think we could pull that up and get that out there. So we're going to take a look at that right now, if we could.
Inravio.com.
Walking around the Himes Museum of Racing Nostalgia, out at the end of the driveway, I see one of the old-time modified drivers from my day, Lenny Fisher. Lenny, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
You raced against the cream of the crop at ISIP in the early days of Riverhead.
We were just talking about that outside. Memories of things with, like, say, Charlie Jazombeck, Gary Winters, Teddy Wisnowski. These guys were the best. These guys raced, first of all, they raced 3 nights a week, okay? I mean, it was racing then. It was a tough crowd to race with. And we were just telling stories out there about, I can remember my first year racing on a restart. You know, if you're looking at it and you're saying, well, that's a new guy, he's going to mess up, and Charlie's never going to get the lead. Charlie had just enough room, went in between me and whoever else was out there, and he won.
Did you always race a modified, or what did you do before that?
I ran a bomber. I ran a bomber for 2 years. No, I ran a bomber for 1 year. Ran late model Freeport, just made the track bigger, and they introduced the late models. And we took our bomber car, and we put big tires on it and made it a late model. And we ran that for 2 years, and then we decided to go to modified racing, and just, I don't know, I've been doing it ever since.
Lenny, favorite track?
Oh, God. I really liked Freeport that was the first track I raced, and I really liked it. I guess it's because I was there so much as a kid. I mean, we would be there 3 nights a week watching the races, and it was just, that was the thing we did back then. And
Lenny, I want to thank you for your time. I know you're out there talking racing with everybody.
Yeah, this is like, I told the wife I'm going to be out here an hour, but I'll probably be here until who knows when.
Lenny Fisher, modified driver, Freeport, Islip, Riverhead. One of the best looking cars that I recall growing up, starting my career at Islip and Riverhead as well. Lenny, thank you.
Hey, I enjoyed that day. We were there wow, from the morning to late afternoon. And we have a few more of those, in fact, a lot more of those that we're going to show in the next few weeks. And, you know, talking with Lenny, you know, it was, how can I put it? I know Lenny from when I was a kid. And, you know, when he was out there doing his thing at Race and Modifieds. And I was involved with a guy who bought one of Lenny's cars. And when we had nowhere to put it, and you know, and back then that was before the tour. It was probably in the late '70s. It was before the tour, so it was just the modified series. And what we did is we had to get a driver's license. So the guy that's going to drive it gets his driver's license. I call O'Rourke. I get an owner's license, and I'm getting all these entry blanks in the mail. You know, come to this race, come to that race. And you would see on the bottom, you know, an extra 500 to Richie Evans. I mean, to Richie Evans becomes, you know, the 500 to Jerry Cook if he comes. And what they would do is, boom, they get the extra money. Well, anyway, we kept the car at Joe Marmolito's yard in Lakewood Auto Parts on 109 here over in Lindenhurst. And somebody thought it was a junk car and flattened it. Anyway. You can't make this up. That might have to go in the book. Anyway, we have a few minutes left, so it's always fun to share those stories, and I really have to sit back and maybe not let Phil Kurse down, because you know he's looking down, and you know nothing's gonna go right for me unless I write this book for him. So, Phil, I'm gonna do the best I can, God willing, and you know when you know go talk to the big guy up there and tell him to give me that little spark, you know, let his hand guide me, because I know it's going to be a tough one to write. Anyway, I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for having the time to spend to watch the show, to participate in the show, to talk and watch. And I want to wish everybody and your families a Merry, Merry Christmas. And this is the time of year we need to reflect on those things and what we have and be thankful of it. And I want to wish everybody a happy and healthy and a safe new year. 2019, it's here. It sounds so futuristic, but it's here. And again, my chat room standbys, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to watch the banter between you, my Facebook Live people, my internet people, the people who watch it during the week. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and wherever your endeavors are going to bring you, whether you're visiting family, whether family's coming to you, make sure you give somebody a hug. Tell them you love them. God bless you all, and we will see you in 2019. Good night, everybody.